everyone, and welcome to today's webcast on API-powered digital transformation journey of Equinix. My name is Manoj Gunti, and I'll be the moderator for today's discussion. Also joining us today is Ramchandra Koty, who is the Director of Product Engineering at Equinix. And I will let Ram introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Ram, and I've been with Equinix from last 9 years and worked on various digital transformation strategies, which included web, mobile, and APIs. So today I'll be walking you guys through the Equinix journey around APIs with Manoj.
Thank you, Ram, and once again, welcome to the webcast. So before we begin the webcast, I just wanted to quickly run through a couple of housekeeping items. What you see on your screen or on the slide should resemble the webcast console. On the bottom left, you can see the Q&A console where you can post questions at any time during the webcast. Please note that you don't have to wait until the end of the webcast to actually post your questions. Please feel free to add them in whenever you can. And we will take some time towards the end of the webcast to answer those questions. You can also see a resources console next to the Q&A console where we will be making a few references to the resources during this webcast, and you will be able to see some links over there. With that, let's begin. Apigee has been working with a lot of customers for several years, and what we have seen is a shift in the trend of the discussions that we are having with both our existing customers as well as prospective customers. What once used to be a discussion around how do we use APIs to access my applications or infrastructure from within on-premise, then evolved into a discussion around integration with the emergence of cloud-based technologies. So how do I use APIs to connect my on-prem legacy applications with what's being built on the cloud and infrastructure, and around communicating between the cloud and legacy as well. And then we slowly started to see discussions gaining business value with our prospective customers as well as existing customers. This business value discussion is more around, all right, so APIs are today enabling different connections, but how can I up-level my API program to actually deliver business value for my customers, partners, and also developers who are accessing this API. Then the discussions were more around how can we deliver connected digital experiences for end users who are accessing a customer's website either on their desktops or on mobile phones or through IoT channels and etc. And then how can we onboard partners and make partner program much more easier? And from then, we are now seeing a shift in our discussions towards more of a digital transformation. So as enterprise digital transformation programs are maturing and as their API programs are also maturing and scaling, we see that API initiatives are now directly being aligned to the enterprise digital transformation initiatives. Things such as, creating connected digital experiences, creating new business models by creating ecosystems of developers and partners, and monetizing the API products to create additional revenue channels for organizations are some of the use cases that we are seeing that are directly aligned with the digital goals of an enterprise. And with that, we will today look into how Equinix has actually made this whole transformation from, they started their API programs as, agents of access, and now they are looking at, totally digitally transforming their organization, and everything is today powered by APIs. So we will cover a little bit about what Equinix is as a company, an overview of their API program, what are some of the use cases and how some of their end customers are actually using these APIs, and we will understand how as they progress in their API journey and how they have been using API data and analytics to power their entire digital transformation program. And we will also understand how Equinix is making their APIs and API products, making available for the developers to actually consume using a developer portal. This looks like a very tight and packed agenda, so without any further ado, I will let Ram talk a little bit about Equinix. Over to you, Ram.
Thanks, Manoj, for setting the context, and hello, everyone. So one of the key things you will learn or you will know in this webinar is about all the API journey that Equinix has taken. And for that, one of the most critical thing is to know about Equinix and how we digitally transformed our business processes to APIs for helping our customers to integrate. Equinix was founded in 1998, and Equinix is a global data center and interconnection company spread across 5 continents, 24 countries, 50 metros, and we have total 200 data centers, which are all interconnected via a cloud exchange fabric. Basically, all our data centers are connected. How we see now in the coming years for this to help our customers to do digital transformation is now we have, if I take an analogy of IaaS, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service, we see that we are providing a platform, and on top of it, our customers and partners can start developing their apps and services leveraging the core capabilities of data center and interconnection that we have. So that is what Equinix is. Moving on to the Equinix API program overview, one of the key asks from the internal stakeholders was why do we need even APIs as part of a data? Actually, we started our journey in 2014. You will see that journey, how we moved. But one of the key asks was what are the business drivers around APIs? As you can see, we came up around 5 key business drivers which helped us to have a purpose, need, and result. So one of the key thing is speed. So with the microservices and DevOps picking up around 2015, 2016, we saw that having an API first mindset helps in building features and delivering those to market even faster. So speed to market was one of the key business driver. Second was new channels. I think APIs definitely helps in going into channels which we might have never seen. So reach and scale was second driver for us. Third one was more for trust because being in the enterprise business of providing services to customers, I think one of the key part is trust with our customers where we have provided key capabilities as APIs for integration, and now it's with the customer stickiness. Customers see a direct value in our services. And fourth and fifth is the standard use, the drivers for APIs, which is more on innovation. I think self-disruption is very critical for us, where we expose some of our APIs to our customers, partners, and even to internal developers, so that they can see what kind of apps and services can be built and innovate more on our current business ecosystem. And the last one is optimization, where we are trying to use our APIs to optimize the processes internally. Basically, it goes to the automation part, where it has helped us to basically reduce, I would say, software complexity and also as operational cost. Because as we know, APIs typically helps us to generalize as well as specialize in certain business areas. So we have seen some cost savings around that. Moving on to our Equinix API journeys, as I mentioned, Equinix is working with Apigee from 2014 when we evaluated multiple API management products. At that time, we were just bootstrapping because we were undergoing a big digital transformation journey within Equinix. And one of the key ask was how do we provide our services, key services as APIs? So at that time, we basically launched a very basic API, and I would say 2017-18 is when API first strategy we started adopting it practically. And in 2019, from last year to this year, we have exposed certain APIs to our customers and partners, and we are actually seeing the value which they were looking for, and we have some goals to go towards more proactive API development in 2020 and beyond.
So when you started off your API journey in 2014, did you start off by exposing APIs within the organization, or did you start off by exposing it outside the organization?
A good question. So one of the key aspect was we started it basically came as a demand from some of our customers. So we at that time were just about a kind of monolithic applications, and we started some APIs development and started exposing to customers. But in parallel, we started this journey where we tried to influence the API first mindset and started building the APIs for internal stakeholders. So I would say we did both. We learned few things from directly exposing to customers, as well as for internal stakeholders. When we started exposing, we learned more about the governance and standardization.
So when you expose the APIs outside of your organization, were there any challenges within the organization in terms of security and governance and stuff like that? And did you have to kind of convince a lot of people that APIs is the right way, they are more secure, and how it will not affect the overall enterprise security?
So I would say yes and no, because actually security is one of the key things that Equinix is always, because we are in that business of protecting customers' data. So from an API standpoint, we did receive some, I would say, questions rather than concerns around how do we secure this data going to customer side. So one of the key things was which helped us was the blueprinting exercise which we did with APG in a comprehensive study, where how do we do this overall security and as well as the high availability and performance. So those things really helped us to even start the journey with customers. But there were certain challenges in terms of how we designed the APIs for customers. Because we were going with some assumptions. So more learning was how our customers wanted these integrations to work and how we designed initially.
Sure, sounds good. And a lot of customers and a lot of people from the audience typically are super excited and interested and curious to learn a lot about microservices, because that's the new trend. And a lot of companies are looking to break down their monoliths into microservices for more agility and ease of use. So if you can double click a little bit on that going forward in your presentation as we cover the other topics, that would be really great.
Sure. I will definitely do it in this slide. So I'll talk about all the 5 aspects of platform, containers, microservices, DevOps, and API first. So as I mentioned, the business drivers initially on the APIs, what we came up with. So one of the key next step for us was providing what is that Equinix can do in terms of API. So we had to work with all the cross-functional stakeholders and realize and come up with this strategy around how we can accelerate our customers' digital transformation as well as ours. So we came up with this, I would say, 6 key areas where we thought that it should be a mutual thing between us and our customers. Once we see the value, I think both the parties can agree and we can start integration. Those 6 were basically number 1 is extend reach and scale. Definitely we wanted to extend our reach to our customers and partners around API integrations, because we do have partners like resellers who resells our services to their customers, and I think API is the best way for them to integrate. Second one was partner integration, where our partners are integrating into their ecosystem our capabilities and providing some value-added services to their customers. Third one was cloud enablement. So Equinix is in the frontier of enabling multi-hybrid cloud with our customers. So one of the key aspect was how do we help our customers with the cloud enablement via APIs, because now these days everything is we call it the easy button. Everything needs to happen with one push or even zero touch things. So this enabling APIs for cloud enablement for our customers really helped, and you'll see some case studies in coming slides. Fourth one was externalized R&D. So we have not yet made much progress on externalized R&D, because right now we are exposing our APIs for customers, and customers are using it for their specific business problems or challenges. But externalized R&D, we wanted to go to a state where we expose this to our internal developers and customers, and we can hear from them how and what better apps we can develop. Number 5 was workflow automation. So workflow automation is the key aspect for many of our customers around why they are leveraging our APIs, considering the business we are in. So for enterprises, I think automation is the key, and APIs is the frontier to enable that. So a lot of customers are around workflow automation. And The last one is organizational flexibility. This is one thing which goes back to Manoj's question. We do think that we do believe that APIs which we develop needs to be leveraged in the exact same way as our customer users internally as well. So our developers are also using the APIs to develop our web mobile applications in the similar way as our customers do. So we make sure that whatever APIs comes out, basically serves both the purpose. And how do we do this is based on key investment around the platforms. The platform basically in this case is the API management platform, which we have done investment and customization. So Apigee is what we use. We are Apigee on-prem customers still, and we are evaluating hybrid. So that is one of the core part of our strategy. Second is containers and microservices. I'll talk both in the same together because I think in 2016, late 2016 is when we started moving from monolith to microservices for specific purpose. A lot of our services are basically we try to take the monolith service and our products and services, we break it into multiple microservices to serve different purposes. So today, when we move to microservices, the greatest value what we see is speed to market and also the operational efficiency. Because earlier, if there was an issue during any service or degradation, I think it was taking a lot of time for us to figure out the exact pain point around the code. But now with tools available in the market, we are on Kubernetes. So containers and microservices tools that it gives with different service mesh, etc. It has helped us to isolate the problem quickly and also to deliver features faster to market based on the demand. So actually DevOps is similar and API first mindset. So I would say definitely microservices was a big key task for us to move from monolith to microservices, but it has given that value which we were looking for today. And we are able to develop features fast, globally distributed teams, as well as independent designs and development with polyglot frameworks. So it has enabled a lot of these aspects, which helped us to basically reach where we are today.
Ram, I would like to ask a quick follow-up question on microservices. So you mentioned that the monolith was broken down into several microservices and then a service mesh and then API management. Could you help our audience understand what is the difference between a microservice and why do you need a service mesh and what value does API management add on top of it?
Okay, so how we see is, let's take a business function, right? Let's say I have an ordering business process and I have some products. This is our business. This is our typical use case. So I'll be more comfortable in speaking to that. So we have a complex ordering process, which basically we do give a lot of capabilities around customers to place various product orders. So if I take a monolith order, which can take orders for any type of product type, then it basically was the complexity. Like if for example, one order goes, if I am taking a service degradation on one order, then other order type also was going down. So from a microservices standpoint, it helped us to isolate all the product types and still achieve the performance, the resiliency, and the redundancy aspects to our ordering process. So service mesh was basically we were using mainly for intra microservice communications. But how I separate microservices versus API management? So API management for us is an overall gateway, which basically is meant for our customer traffic, and microservices is the internal service. We use a term called service chaining. So we use microservices for connecting the business processes together and give one value, and then leverage the API management features around most of the standard gateway features like spike arrest, quota policies, the composition of those microservices. So those things is what we use API management for.
So if my understanding is correct, your microservice is an endpoint which you are wrapping it up with an API proxy so that you could incorporate policies on top of it you could do high level of advanced security stuff on top of it. And at the same time, you can analyze the trends, the consumption patterns, who is accessing it, and you can manage the overall access and analytics on top of it. And that's how you're seeing API management on it, right? Is my understanding correct?
Yes, that's right.
So I do see a lot of people questions coming in regarding, give us some examples of the APIs that you have exposed. I think you have some examples coming across in the next few slides. So I just wanted to ask the audience to stay tuned for a few more minutes, and we'll be covering those use cases in much more detail.
Moving on to the next slide. So here I'll talk about the APIs that we have exposed as well as the case studies. So now, when we learned about the business, when we came up with the business drivers and our strategy, which needs to be mutual, actually definitely we did not want to come up with a strategy which is not aligned with our customers' demand. So basically how I see is if a customer is coming to Equinix with a certain problem statement, we try to fit them in one of the 6 areas which you saw here. And typically till today, like in last couple of years, it fits exactly, their use case completely fits into one of these areas. And then we start our journey with our customers around digital transformation. What kind of APIs Equinix exposes? So I will talk through it, and definitely we have a lot of reference material after this, which we will share. If we see, as I mentioned, Equinix is world's largest data center and interconnection company, and we are moving towards providing services on top of our platform. So how we see is we help customers to grow their digital footprint and we are big ecosystems of cloud and network providers within Equinix. So then we go towards, once they grow their platform with Equinix, we try to help them to connect to multiple regions, metros for cloud connectivity, because we also do have the largest footprint of cloud service providers within our data centers. And then it goes to the standard e-commerce things where we help with the ordering, billing, standard processes of e-commerce, and then the monitoring aspect. So in terms of our story, how we help customers from day one till they can monitor their services, we are trying, as you could see, there are some stars and there are a few things. So we are trying to enable this end-to-end experience for our customers so that they can integrate basically the entire journey via our APIs. So what API specifically we provide, it's actually there in a few slides afterwards, but we have this developer.equinix.com. It's a public-facing site. So you will find basically ECX Fabric API. So ECX Fabric is nothing but Equinix Cloud Exchange Fabric. I'll just take this one example, which will give you an idea what kind of APIs we expose. So this is a product that helps our customers to do multi-hybrid cloud use cases for their disaster recovery or storage backup or connecting to multiple clouds. So we do have enabled this product capability as an API, which our customers basically integrate within their platform and help their partners and customers to do the same. One of the case study is this, Telstra Programmable Network. It's a case study which we did with Telstra, which is Telstra, as you know, it's one of the Asia's global software-defined network player, and they have a capability called as Telstra Programmable Studio, where the customers can log in and build their network and do multi-cloud. So here is where platform Equinix helps. They leverage ECX Fabric APIs to integrate within their platform and help customers to reach to any cloud of desire. So for example, if I want to keep data on private and compute in public, and that is also possible, or I want to keep data in one cloud and compute in another cloud. So those are the use cases that we enable. And with recent launch of multiple, I think most of the cloud service providers are also embracing the hybrid cloud strategy. So that's where our core part comes in as part of our product. So this is one API that we enable, but there are a lot of other APIs which is available on our site. And offline, in this deck, we have some links which will help you to navigate through that as well. second case study is, like as I said, I'm just taking two examples of one is the cloud connectivity and one is the monitoring part. So we do a lot of customers keep their servers and network infrastructure and everything within our data centers, and they are interconnected. So this is second level of API where we provide real-time streaming APIs to our customers to view their, I might be using some terminologies which might be different, but like they have their assets here, which we call as like their servers. And if they want to monitor any temperature, humidity, like they want to get the power usage, etc. So we do give them a real-time streaming APIs to get the data for their specific deployments within our data centers. So this is a second variation of our API use case, which is basically helps our customers to build a connected data set and proactively measure. So some of our customers are using it for their own AI and ML capabilities so that they can basically proactively predict some incidents within their data analysis perspective. So this covers the case studies and what kinds of APIs Equinix exposes. Moving on to our developer ecosystem. So how we see developer ecosystem as an overall player is actually developer ecosystem is just not providing some website and helping customers to integrate with APIs. I think we basically think as a 360-degree, the API management, as you can see on the left-hand side, is the very critical aspect to it, where we do API analytics, design, security, monetization, gateway, all these aspects, and certain activities like we do hackathons, workshops, etc., to bring the community together. And our publishers, like basically our producers and consumers part, where we write some APIs to provide a capability to our customers and they consume it. That is what enables the entire developer ecosystem. We do have internally, we use terminals like private APIs and customer APIs. So, and we have some SDKs, analytics, capabilities. So this basically shows the 360 view of what we believe needs to be a developer experience to build an ecosystem for complete platform integration via APIs. So Manoj, just want to check, like, is there any curious question or anything? Or
yeah, there are a few questions, but I think just in the interest of time, we will proceed with the content, and we will we'll take the last 10 minutes for Q&A.
Sure. Thanks, Manoj. Now, coming to the importance of API data. So here I have listed certain, definitely I think, as we all know, data is the new oil, like it's the new king, and data is needed at every step to make a right decision, I would say, and orient ourselves to the right direction. Some of the key questions that API data helps us with is we constantly review who are our top customers, basically in terms of API usage. How are they using our APIs? And you'll see some of these details in the next slide. What is the overall API traffic by region? So we measure by region how and which areas we grow, because we try to map it to the growth of the customers in a region and how they are leveraging APIs. Which customer segments, you'll see some data like who is using our APIs, like is it a network providers, is it cloud service providers, is it enterprises? So that is very critical for us, for our business, for us to understand. Which API endpoints are mostly used and how is API performance? So we proactively measure the API performance and try to reach out to customers in case they have any performance issues around APIs. One of the key learning for us is typically in a web world, customers will tell you what kind of problem they face because they see it in UI. In the API world, everything is system integrated. So I think more proactive we are, it is very useful for us. And the point 6 is how can we identify anomalies and take preventive measures. So this is one more area where we read a lot of logs from like within Apigee and try to see what kind of errors or anomalies are coming and how quickly we can take preventive measures because of the scale of integration that API brings in. How does the data help? Definitely, I think in 3 terms. One is for our customers, we can give the better experience, as I was talking about proactive monitoring. So that really helps us to give better service to our customers. The second one is also value proposition, right? Like which customer segment is growing in which region and which metro. It gives us a lot of detailed insight into where customers want to integrate and how they want to grow. So this also helps us with the capability of providing some value proposition metrics to our leadership. And also this is like a people part where the API usage itself is a direct connection to the motivation for at least like teams for us. Because when a customer is integrated and the problem is solved for a customer, we see a real focus around the API numbers, where we see like, oh, okay, today, like this quarter, we met 1 million transactions happened. So that kind of brings up a motivation factor for every developer to see what value they brought in on the table. So that is also very critical for us to bring the entire team motivation up with this data. As I discussed, so what are the key things that we use? So there are certain out-of-the-box features which Apigee has. Again, we are Apigee on-prem customers as of now, and some of the things which we have built internally, because which I'll walk through. So out-of-the-box features, we definitely use a lot of analytics capabilities, which are shown on the left side. Some of those are like related to performance. Like how is the proxy, like the endpoint is performing in a certain region, in a certain endpoint for a certain developer. And also we track the developer engagement, like if a developer is creating an app term used in Apigee, and how are they leveraging their app, so and the traffic composition. So these are some of the analytics that we like measure every month, and we have this monthly stakeholder report which we send across to all the stakeholders, which gives a lot of insight to like our business to see the value of where our customers are going towards. Within our developer community, like within Equinix, we definitely use traceroute a lot. Traceroute helps us to basically trace any transactions coming in, and quickly in the live environment, we can see how the transaction is behaving. And I don't know if you can see, but like we apply a lot of policies, as Manoj was mentioning before. So we have these generic policies for logging, auditing, security, which is like we have developed it as one stop shop of policies, and we make sure that is applied to all the APIs in a standardized way. So this traceroute, basically we know like almost 30 to 40% of the policies we know if there are any like anomalies in that, or if the code that is written where the anomaly we are finding. So traceroute helps us in that, which gives us the overall status codes as well as the performance of each and every step. The second one is API proxy performance. So it definitely helps us to see overall API performance, and we fine tune our code based on, like, for example, if an API is taking, like, let's say 500 milliseconds, and if the pain point is around a third-party call, so we try to optimize that and measure it via this tool. Apart from this, we also have built our own custom analytics, which is basically we pull in data using management APIs of Apigee and pull into our big data system. The reason of doing that is because a lot of this API data needs basically a system connection. To give an example, to find out a customer segment, we have the developer email IDs and the customer name, but we use our internal business process to map it to our own customer. So for this system connectedness, we pull in this data and try to create some reports where I have just shown here 2, but we have like around 5 or 6 various slice and dice of data, which is critical for us for measuring and providing value prop to our leadership. So customer segment is one where you can see like how the API's growth is by customer segment. If there is a growth in network service provider or a cloud service provider, then we can see it. And similarly, API traffic by capability, like I was talking about ECX Fabric, which is Cloud Exchange Fabric, and the monitoring aspect. So if there's a specific call increase for that product, then we see why is that high demand and which kind of use cases customers are trying to solve. So this custom-built tool helps us in more system connectedness, and out-of-the-box features helps us to focus on the APIs and its data analytics to optimize and to basically optimize the overall performance and throughput. that being said, so we use again Apigee's developer console product, but we have customized it on top of it, and we do have as an enterprise. I think you all can relate that we do have a lot of customizations with our own internal IAM systems, identity and access management systems, as well as our own internal tools. So we have this developer.equinix.com where we have exposed all the capabilities as APIs, and it's public site. You all can try it out. And we do have a feature called as Playground, where you don't need to have an account with Equinix. You can simply register quickly and try out. Basically, it's a mock API, so it basically helps you to see what kind of capabilities we can build on top of developer platform or leveraging the API management and developer console capabilities of Apigee. The last one is the key learning. So these were some of the key learnings for us over last 3 to 4 or 5 years. One of the key thing is I think APIs it means business. So either you are developing an open API or a public API or a private API. I think we have to make sure that any API we give is business focused. Otherwise, I think that option will be very low, and it will not. I think it will be very difficult to convince the internal stakeholders. Second one is operational excellence. I think this is one area which we underestimated in 2015, 2016. As I mentioned, in a web world, if there's an issue, it is very easy because customer will tell you sometimes, and sometimes we can figure it out. But I think APIs brings up a different scale for customers when they integrate with their systems. And once integrated, everyone wants it to work smooth. They don't want any performance issues or any kind of pain points around that. So support is very critical. API governance, I think automation is a must. Being a big organization, I think a lot of challenges will come in terms of different teams developing APIs in a different way. And that's where I believe API management kind of capabilities and policies is a must, where systemic checks and automation will help any organization scale better. So governance is a really required step. Fourth is it's all about developer experience. So sometimes what we measure is how quickly a developer can come to our site, get what they want, try it out, and then basically start integration. We do not want our developers to spend too much time on our site. That means they are learning more, so we even capture that, basically how much time a user is spending on our site and what information they could not. So I think in creating an information architecture and how quickly a developer can get what they want is all about developer experience. So it is typically different than a user experience. So one of the key things we learned is developers, when they are developing, they want to make sure everything works with in one shot. If you are giving 5 steps, it should work. So that's one thing which we learned. And last is community is king. So we did come up with some features like forum, etc., where we are still pushing for adoption. But one thing we learned is definitely community is very critical for APIs because it's more developer focused. And when we have Stack Overflow, so many communities where we always go for solutions. So I think if you want to build a developer ecosystem, it's very critical to plan for bringing up community together and help customers to interact with each other and solve problems instead of we always providing the solution. So that brings up community as well as trust. As I mentioned earlier, so these are the sites links which is available for your reference after this webcast. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us via contact us. But it gives an overall view of what kind of APIs that today we expose to our customers and what problems we can solve.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ram. I think we have a few questions that we can take, and we have some time too. You mentioned a little bit about governance, and there is a question on governance. Can you briefly describe your governance framework for planning, design, development, and runtime phases of API lifecycle?
Okay, so we have a governance at twofold. One is design time and one is at runtime. So design time governance is mainly around threefold. One is around whether when an API when we decide that this capability needs to be exposed to customers as an API, then we try to fit it into something we call as Equinix API story. So that's, as I said, it's a design time, and we discuss about the design aspects of how it relates to the overall story of Equinix and helps customers to integrate in which step. So we go through the customer journey and see if this API will help them in which step. So that goes in the design section. So we do meet with the like cross-functional stakeholders whenever we decide that something needs to go as a customer-specific API. At the runtime is the more critical one, because a lot of things what we have right now built as tools. So we are on open API specification. I think that is one of the key learning for us, because industry is moving towards open API spec, and a lot of this open banking standards, etc., is aligning with that. So with participation with some of the forums, what we learned is once we standardized on open API spec, next step for us was to do runtime checks. So today we have developed some internal tools. So whenever a team publishes any new design, which we use like Swagger here internally, so we do some checks and balances around the URL pattern, the some of the key, I would say, attributes, and even including some of the kinds of sometimes the documentation part, and basically give back that response to developer itself during development stage so that they can fix it very early in the game. So right now we are not fully there, but definitely we automated around 20 to 40% of the open API spec governance things, and we are also trying to leverage certain other tools which is available under open API spec to automate at least 80%. So from a design time, it's all about how it fits your story and how it solves customers' journeys, which step of customer's journey it solves. And from a runtime perspective, it's all about systemic checks of starting from design, standardization, and like standards. If like we do have some standards around error codes, etc. So we have put all those things as a check. So it starts all the way from a development stage till it goes to production.
Cool. Thanks, Ram. And you did mention that in order for an API program to be very successful, you need to onboard and have your business teams aligned with it. So there is a question around that. How do you actually measure or define the value being realized with the API first approach?
Okay. So within Equinix specifically, what we did was so when an API discussion come in, so we segregated into two different values. One is direct value and one is indirect value. So typically, direct value is something which we can see in terms of, let's say, revenue, cost saving, etc. And there's an indirect value which is customer stickiness, customer experience, how we are enabling some of the integrations which is helping our customers to save cost on their end. So basically automation part. So we published the metrics around indirect value, which we could measure, because it was all about how many customers are integrated, and once they integrated, we have to realize that customers also is investing on the customizations because they are doing some development work to integrate with APIs. So considering that there is a stickiness factor, and from a direct perspective, we actually more, because today we do not monetize on Equinix APIs, we monetize the products and APIs comes with it, but cost saving is one thing which we could show and speed to market. So our development team was able to show the productivity improvement, we moving towards APIs, as well as the cost saving due to automation, which was very high when we were monolithic like application development team.
Cool. That's great insight. And do you use any enterprise integration platform? And what enterprise service bus do you have?
Okay, so we do use TIBCO as our enterprise service bus, which is mainly for integrating our business processes. So we did a complete digital transformation of our business processes in 2012-2013, where we leveraged TIBCO EMS platform for this part, and that is our platform for our internal. I would say that's our enterprise integration bus.
Sure. Do you attempt to correlate usage of these APIs with broader measures of customer success or revenue retention?
We do that, and definitely it is very, very complex. So what we do is we use Salesforce for most of our internal sales, right? So we do try to correlate, as I was mentioning in the last one, and let me go here. So as I was showing you some of the out-of-the-box analytics that we use. So here is where we try to see the opportunity cost when, let's say, because I think this goes back to how each and every enterprise business is. We try to correlate more of the cost saving for us than the revenue, but it is possible because of the deals that happens and the usage that comes with it. So if the number of orders via APIs is increasing in a certain region, then we directly correlate that with the APIs as well as the future growth of that customers or related partners. So we do that with our custom analytics.
Perfect. So that is all the questions that we are able to take at this point of time. If any of your questions is unanswered during this webcast, we will go ahead and answer them offline. And at any time, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us or to Ram. His credentials were also provided here, and we are more than happy to answer them. All right, so that's all we have. Have a nice rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you, Ram.